What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to talk about perks and perk balance in the current state of Modern Warfare. Now, I don't want this video to come off as like overly negative or anything. This is simply a feedback video and what I think would make perk balance a little bit better in this game, because as much as I don't feel that perk balance is absolutely terrible, I do feel there's definitely room for improvement in this area. There are some perks that are just clearly outclassing others, and there are many perks in the game that I just don't really see any reason to be using, and I think they could use maybe a little bit of love. Now, of course, just keep in mind as we're going through this, these are my opinions based on my preferences. Feel free to disagree, and if you do, just let me know why in the comment section down below. So let's start it off with the first tier of perks. And right up front, I can tell you guys that I use EOD on every single one of my classes. With the exception of my specialist classes, I like to use Overkill, and then EOD will be the first perk that I earned with specialists. On top of that, if I do run into a situation where I need to shoot a bunch of streaks down, I might temporarily put Cold-Blooded on, but that's not the type of perk that I'll just be keeping on all of the time. Now, because of this, I do think there's a decent amount of room for improvement within this first tier of perks, in order to bring some of the other perks up so that it feels like more of a trade-off to be using EOD, because as of right now, I just don't see any reason to not use EOD. It saves you in so many situations when you think about all the claymores and grenades and everything that's exploding around you all the time. EOD is a massive lifesaver, and it actually saves my life many times every single game I play. So let's go through the list of these perks. First off, we have Double Time. And currently, Double Time gives you double the duration of your tactical sprint, so that super sprint. You can do that for twice as long, which can allow you to get to a power position a little bit faster, especially on an opening route, for instance. It is absolutely helpful for getting you around the map a little bit more effectively. On top of that, it does increase your crouch movement speed by 30%, which is also a nice little boost that is very situational. I don't think too many people are taking advantage of that. But those are the benefits that Double Time gives you, and when you put that up against something like EOD, it quite simply just doesn't stack up. As a result, I do feel Double Time could use a little bit more of a boost in some area. Now, the first idea I had for this was have it so it also eliminates fall damage. As of right now, there is no way to eliminate fall damage in this game, and that's traditionally a pretty standard perk in Call of Duty. Typically, there is some option to eliminate fall damage. So I thought that would be a perfect addition to Double Time, and for 6v6 and 10v10 modes, I still feel that way. However, once I started thinking about it a bit more, this just wouldn't work well for ground war modes. I can just imagine somebody flying up to the maximum altitude with a helicopter and then just dropping in on top of somebody, not even having to open a parachute or anything, just landing on some concrete, not taking any fall damage, and then lighting up that person. This would be a very jarring sort of experience for everyone involved. It wouldn't make any sense, and in that sense, it would just be a little bit too powerful. So perhaps instead of completely eliminating fall damage, they could just reduce the amount of fall damage that you take, which would allow you to survive falls from slightly greater heights, but it wouldn't allow you to jump out of a helicopter or off like a really tall building on Tvorsk District, for instance, and still survive without opening a parachute. Another option instead of that could just be a flat increase to your movement speed, and not a massive increase, not like lightweight in the past where it's like a 7.5% increase to your movement speed, which is a pretty big boost. I'm talking just like a 2 to 3% boost to your movement speed. I think that would be completely reasonable, and it would make Double Time a bit more of an attractive option without making it completely overpowered. Next, we have EOD, which, like I said, this is the clear choice, at least for me, in Tier 1. And while it is the clear choice, I wouldn't want to see its explosive resistance nerfed. I do think if you are running EOD, you should absolutely survive a single explosive if you're at full health. So a single claymore, for instance, should never kill you if you're at full health and using EOD. However, things like direct impact launchers, yeah, that should still kill you, of course. And if you are really close to an explosive, like a grenade when it goes off, you should have very low health, so just one bullet would easily clean you up after that. In that sense, I think EOD is balanced quite nicely. However, I don't think it needs the hack ability as well, and we'll talk a little bit about the hack ability later, because I actually think this should just be transferred to a different perk entirely, and that would make EOD maybe slightly less attractive, although it would still be a pretty attractive option to be choosing in Tier 1. As for the next perk, this is Overkill, and I don't think there's really too much that could be done to Overkill. Overkill is a fairly attractive option as well, and I do see a decent number of people using Overkill. It is quite a powerful choice because it allows you to have like a shotgun secondary, for instance, or I prefer using like a sniper secondary in ground war. But then you are sacrificing EOD, and therefore that does keep it in check just fine. So Overkill, I think, is just fine. Although I do want to mention that it would be nice to be able to use secondaries as well. I think you should be able to choose 2 of any weapon you want, because there are some really niche loadouts that I would love to make that allow you to use 2 secondary weapons, and there's just no option for doing that in this game. After Overkill, we've got Scavenger, and honestly, I can't think of any improvements that could be made to Scavenger without making it overpowered. Like, I don't think it should replenish your lethals or tacticals or anything like that. But at the same time, when I look at that Scavenger perk compared to something like EOD, I know I'm always comparing to EOD, but that's what you have to do when you have tiers of perks like this. I just don't see enough benefit. I would rather survive explosives and just pick guns up off the ground than use the Scavenger perk and just be dying to explosives all the time. So I'm not sure what could be done to Scavenger, if anything. Perhaps it just needs to be moved to a different tier of perks in order to make it a more attractive option. I don't really know, but I will say I have never even been tempted to use the Scavenger perk in this game outside of a specialist setup. And as a result, I do think it is kind of in an awkward position where it's currently at. And this just leaves us with Quick Fix in that tier 1 slot, and I did break down Quick Fix not too long ago, and the way this works is it helps you regenerate health faster after getting a kill, or after securing an objective or playing the objective essentially. While this is kind of a nice perk, and it does help you in very specific situations, like when you narrowly win a gunfight and you're hurt really bad after that gunfight, I can't help but think that it would just be better off if this were like ICU from the past, where it just helps with your health regeneration all the time, but maybe to balance that out, make it so it doesn't regenerate your health as fast as it currently does with Quick Fix, assuming you did just get a kill after taking that damage. I think if this were the case and it were working all the time for me, I would actually consider using this over EOD on some of my classes, but as it is right now, once again, I just keep going back to EOD, and I don't see myself sacrificing that perk in order to use Quick Fix, which is only helping in specific situations. So that's tier 1. Now let's move on to the second tier of perks, and there are some very powerful perks in this tier. Most notably, I would say Ghost. This is one of the most powerful perks in the game. Also, Kill Chain and Hardline. Both of these are quite good as well. But let's start going through the list. The first one is Restock, and honestly, I've got no issue with Restock. I know a lot of people are really upset with Restock because it replenishes equipment, including claymores, and that allows people to have that playstyle where they just camp in a building, covering 2 entrances with claymores because they're also using the Shrapnel perk, which gives them 2 claymores, and then every time a claymore goes off, they can replenish that claymore because every 30 seconds they get a new one. But honestly, when I think about it, players that tend to use that playstyle, first off, they're sacrificing ghosts, so it's really easy to find them and root them out. And second, the people that tend to play like that generally aren't very good players in the first place, and therefore I can run through their claymores with my EOD perk and kill them most of the time anyways. So honestly, I wouldn't even touch Restock. I think it's fine. Same thing goes with Hardline. I wouldn't touch Hardline. I think it works just fine how it is. 1 fewer kill in order to get a kill streak. Makes sense to me. After that, we've got High Alert, and with this perk, when an enemy is looking at you outside of your field of view, you will get kind of a yellow glow around the edges of your screen, and that will indicate to you that you need to get to cover. Somebody's looking at you that you can't currently see. Now, looking at this perk alone, it's not necessarily a bad perk by any means, but I really don't think it has any place being in the tier of perks that it's currently in. Putting this up against something like Ghost or Hardline or Kill Chain is just ridiculous in my opinion. Like, who would choose that over Ghost, for instance? I just don't see it making sense. So I wouldn't necessarily buff this perk. I just think it should be moved to a different tier. I think it would actually make more sense as a tier 3 perk. But moving on to the next one, this is the Ghost perk, which, like I said earlier, this is probably the most powerful perk of the game, or at least one of the most powerful perks, and a lot of that has to do with the map design as well. It's really easy to hide on these maps, and Ghost just makes it that much easier. And personally, I am okay with where Ghost is at as it is, but if it were up to me, I would make it so Ghost deactivates if you are stationary for too long. Now, I think it should be very forgiving. I think you should have like 5 to 10 seconds, so if you need to stop to get a reload, or there are just situations where you need to stop and wait and not make that push right now, I think that's totally fine. But if you're just sitting in that same corner all game, I don't think Ghost should be protecting you. I know this one will be a little bit controversial, and again, I'm not really complaining about Ghost here. I can live with it the way it's at. I just can't help but think that it would be an improvement with that adjustment that I mentioned. As for the next perk, this is Kill Chain, and Kill Chain's a pretty powerful perk. This allows kills from your lethal streaks to contribute to your next lethal streak as long as they're all earned in the same life. And I really enjoy using this on Ground War from time to time. I think it's a great perk to be competing with Ghost, because if somebody wants to use that Kill Chain perk, then they are going to show up on the radar if you get a UAV. So there is a trade-off to that, and I think it's fine how it is. And this just leaves us with the Point Man perk. Now, I have said this in the past, but I still feel exactly the same way. I don't think Point Man should be a perk. I think it should be an option. I think you should be able to choose without spending any perks if you want kill streaks or score streaks. The way they have Point Man balanced as well, I think it would be perfectly balanced to have that free choice of choosing kill streaks or score streaks. It's not like it would suddenly be so overpowered to choose the score streak option over the kill streak option. It would be completely just preference based. And honestly, even if Point Man were just a choice and not a perk, I would still be choosing kill streaks more often than not. But from time to time, depending on the game mode I'm playing, I might also choose to use score streaks if it were a free choice. But I'm not going to waste my tier 2 perk to choose that. I actually think removing Point Man from the perks and creating this as just a free option would help improve objective game modes overall as well, because the people that really want score streaks and they want to play the objective really hard and be rewarded for it, but they don't want to waste their tier 2 slot, now they wouldn't have to, and they would actually go out and play the objective more often. But that's my opinion on the second tier of perks. Now let's move on to the third tier, and this tier is generally the weaker tier of perks. These are the perks where you can kind of take them or leave them. They generally don't have a massive impact on your gameplay ability or your playstyle or anything. They're more so just little boosts to help you out. First up, we have the Tune-Up perk, which allows you to earn those field upgrades 33% faster, which is just fine how it is in my opinion. I think that's a perfectly fine and balanced perk for this slot. Next, we have Amped, and again, Amped is a pretty solid perk as well. This allows you to swap weapons faster, it allows you to throw lethal equipment faster as well. Not tactical equipment, but lethal equipment you can throw faster, and you can reload your launchers faster as well. So some nice little boosts there, fits nicely in this tier slot. After that, we have Shrapnel, which gives you 2 pieces of equipment to spawn with, and I use this all the time in Ground War combined with Thermite so I can take out tanks really effectively. And on top of that, any damage that you deal with your lethals towards enemies, it will cause a 3-second delay to their healing, which is another great benefit with Shrapnel. I would say this is actually one of the more powerful perks within this tier, and I think it's fine where it's at. After that one, we have Battle Hardened, and with Battle Hardened, I did do a breakdown on this not too long ago. Maybe I'll leave that link down in the description if I can remember. And with this, essentially, it reduces the duration of the effect of the stun grenade, the flash grenade, and the EMP drone. And while that reduced duration is nice, it doesn't actually reduce the effect for that small duration. So oftentimes, even if I'm using Battle Hardened, if I get stunned, I'm still pretty much completely helpless for the next 3 seconds or so. And that's plenty of time for the enemy player to come and kill me. And I just think if you are using the counter to those tactical grenades, you should have more of a chance to fight back. So I think it should actually reduce the effect itself a little bit more. And on top of that, I think Battle Hardened should work against gas grenades. As it is right now, there is no known counter to the gas grenades. And I think Battle Hardened should help at least a little bit dealing with those gas grenades. As for the next perk, this is Spotter, which allows you to see enemy equipment, kill streaks, as well as vehicles through walls. And it also gives you the ability to mark those things for your teammates to see. Now, while this isn't a horrible perk by any means, I think it could be a little bit better, and I think it would make more sense if this had the hacking ability for enemy equipment rather than EOD. So like I said earlier, take that hacking ability away from EOD and instead apply it to the Spotter perk. That would be a very minor boost to Spotter, wouldn't be overpowered by any means, I think it would be just fine. And finally, this leaves us with the last perk that we have in Modern Warfare, and this is Tracker, which will show you the recent enemy footsteps, and on top of that, it will show enemy death locations as a red skull, and any enemies that you kill won't have a skull above them for their teammates to see, which is more powerful than you might think. Having said this, there is one other thing that I think would be a nice addition to the Tracker perk that would alleviate some of the tier 1 perk stress as well, and this is, I think it should delay the trigger of claymores and proximity mines. So if I run past a claymore at full speed, it should delay that trigger enough for me to get through without taking any damage from it, and I think that would make Tracker a much more viable perk, because as of right now, I don't think very many people are using Tracker. I could be mistaken, but I honestly don't use it ever. but I would be much more inclined to use that in the tier 3 slot, and if it had that benefit, I would also feel a little bit less reliant on the EOD perk, because the primary reason I use EOD is for claymores, and I tend to be aggressive, so it's not like I'm walking into claymores often. I'm often sprinting past claymores or trying to sprint past claymores as fast as possible, so Tracker would actually suit me a little bit better, and I think that would solve some issues there. But those are all just my opinions. I'd like to know in the comment section below. First off, what do you guys think about some of the suggestions that I've made? Do you agree with them, disagree with any of them? And also, any other suggestions that you have to the perks in this game that you think would balance things out a little bit better? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.